Hello everyone. Once again, my name Willy Ensinikweri, your mathematics teacher, P4 class. Hope you are doing very well and you are safe. Today, before I take you to what I've brought for you today, let's first look back where we stopped from last time when we met, and we'll look at the activity that was given. We may not manage to go through all the numbers, but at least we shall pick some few and you answer them. And you see how best you really answered the questions, okay? Remember, we had fraction of fractions, whereby we said, you know what a fraction is? A part of a whole. And what does the word of mean? As we saw, we said of can also mean multiplication. So, we had like the first one, whereby they said work out a half of a quarter. And we said, let's first interpret the word of, which is the same as a half times a quarter. Do you still remember this? Yeah, I know you must be remembering. From here we said to multiply these fractions, a fraction by a fraction, let's have a numerator times a numerator. As we said, here we have 1 and 1. Then we shall be out of a denominator times a denominator. We have 4, we have 2 and 4. Those are denominators, okay? Then let's substitute. Our numerator is 1 times another numerator 1 out of the denominator 2 times 4, okay? So what do you come up with? It is a matter of multiplying 1 times 1, you get 1, and 2 times 4, and you get 8. Hope you passed this one. Check properly and see the flow of each step on this very number. We also had, let's look at part C, if you can check properly, where we had 2/3 of a half. I think it is this one. Yes, we say interpret the word of, whereby this is 2/3 times a half. Okay? So here we shall say it is a numerator times a numerator out of denominator times denominator. Substitute. Here the numerators we have 2 times 1, and our denominator we have 3 times 2. Okay? Let's multiply and see. 2 times 1, what do you get? Somebody saying 2. What about 3 times 2? Somebody saying 6. Let me hope you got 2 6s as your answer for part C. When you look at, let's have part 4, which is part D, and this was 3/4 of a quarter. We said interpret the word of, which means multiplication, okay? Then, second step, or the next step, multiply a numerator times a numerator out of a denominator times a denominator. Hope you are following. Let's substitute. Our numerators will have 3 and 1. Then our denominator will have 4 times 4. Hope you are ready to multiply with me. 3 times 1, what do you get? Somebody saying 3, correct. What about 4 times 4? No, that's not 8, it's not 8. But 4 times 4, we get 16. Did you get it right? Very good. Allow me to answer the last number, which was part E, if I'm not mistaken. Check your activity. And we had 1/3 of a 10th. Okay? If it is 1/3 of a 10th, interpret of, then this gives you 1/3 times a 10th. We said, let's have the product of numerator and a numerator, then we divide by denominator times the denominator. In this case, our numerators will have 1 and 1, okay? Then our denominator will have 3 and 10. Are you ready to multiply with me? 1 times 1. Somebody is saying 1. Correct. Out of what about 3 times 10? Very good. Somebody is saying 30. You are a bright child there. Please, I've managed to answer 4 of them. That was check part A, the way I've answered. Check part C. That means I've skipped part B. Look at part D. And also check the last part E and see whether you answered these questions very well. If you answered them very well, please clap yourselves over there. Now for today, members, we are back to another lesson whereby it is word problem. And this word problem is involving holes. It is involving holes. When I say word problem, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are problems of words. Oh, we are going to look at the words that have problems. No. Here we shall see the concept of holes, but we shall just be writing. We shall see that our questions will involve words, but talking about one thing, holes. How do you go about holes? Take an example. If we are to have some of these examples, to know exactly what the teacher is talking about. Here the teacher is talking about example 1, or if I have quite a number of examples, and I have the first one, which is, what is? Someone saying, what is a half of 10? As simple you can see. The way we had it before, but now things have been set in words. But do you know what a half is? Just look here. If I talk about a half, do you get anything? If I talk about 10, do you really have something in the head when I talk about 10? Remember, this is a word. This is another word. But now we can change them to figures. And really we take what we are doing here. So somebody saying, I know what a half is. A half is 1 out of 2. But of, as we said, of means multiplication. We shall also interpret it later. Do you know how to write 10? Somebody saying 10. So it is something of this kind. If we go step ahead to interpret of, it is like we have 2 then times 10. Let's go back and see where we had, what is a half of 10? How many groups of 2s can you have from 10 objects? Which 10 objects? Assume we have bottle tops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Please, this is telling us group them in 2s. In 2s. 1, 2, that is a group. 1, 2, this is another group. 1, 2, this is a group. 1, 2, this is a group. 1, 2, this is a group. Okay? So how many groups are these? We have 1, we have 2, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5. So finally we shall say a half times 10, the answer is 5. And you just underline. Nothing much here. Word problem. We don't mean that these are words that will become problems as we work out or as we interpret. No. We mean they can be worked out depending on what we covered previously, okay? And now we have the second example whereby somebody is asking, how many halves are in a hole or one hole? Do you know what a hole looks like, sincerely? Yes, a hole means just one. That's a hole. But asking, how many halves? Do you know the meaning of the word halves? This is a plural word for a half. So a half is 1. If there are many halves, not halves, but halves, H-A-L-V-E-S, halves. How do you go about this? Now, assume you have a whole which is of this kind. This is a whole. But they are telling us, let's find how many halves. That means we get this whole and we divide it into 2. This is a half of this whole, and this is another half of this whole. So the answer is very clear here. What do I mean to say the answer is clear? It has been a whole, then we've managed to divide it into halves to find out how many halves make this whole. That's why we are saying this part that I've shaded is equal to the other part that is not shaded. So somebody can count these halves. How many are they? 1, 2. Simple as that. Somebody will say 2 halves. Okay? And you end there. See how really simple this question is. So we can also ask you other fractions from a half. For example, if I have somebody saying, how many quarters are in one whole? Read it with me. How many quarters are in one whole? Spell the word quarters. Q-U-A-R-T-E-R-S. Quarters. If it is 1 quarter, it's a quarter. If there are many quarters, have you observed the spelling of the word quarters, my friend? Likewise, the way we say how many halves. Here they're asking how many quarters. We all know that a quarter is written like this, sorry. Now assume we have our whole. This is a whole, okay? Another 1 whole. But they're saying divide them into 4 parts. How many quarters do we get here? The other time we had it in halves, okay? But now they're saying we make 4 of them equal of that kind. So we have, this is a quarter, this is a quarter, this is a quarter, this is also another quarter. Yes, a whole, and we have divided a whole into quarters. I know this is a quarter, but if we have to count how many quarters are made out of this whole, help me. Let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these are 4 quarters. Spell the word quarters. C-U-A-R-T-E-R-S. Observe this spelling properly. 4 quarters that can be made from 1 whole. Allow me to give you one more example that involves a whole. Somebody saying a third of a book was torn. Okay? This statement understood? Good. What fraction of the book was not torn? Read with me. A third of a book was torn. What fraction of the book was not torn? Hope you understand when I talk about the word torn. It's like you get this paper, you tear it, okay? So this paper is torn, okay? And we are looking at a whole. Now in this case, what determines a whole is a book, okay? This case, let's have a whole of this kind to represent a book. But part of it was torn. Somebody came and tore it. So, this is, if one part is torn, let's take away the part that was torn, and they have told us that it is a third. Okay? If it was a third, which part of the book is not torn? Now, we are going to use these three to describe this whole, okay? And how is it done? It will be 3 out of 3. 3 out of 3 the same as a whole, okay? I remember telling you that this whole is representing a book, the whole book. But we've removed the part which was torn. And we have said the torn fraction was a third. Which fraction was not torn? So we shall have, go back, let's keep the common denominator, subtract the numerators. 3 take away 1. And the fraction that we are going to remain with will be the fraction that was not torn. Okay? So 3 minus 1. Somebody saying it 2. And this is out of 3. Full stop. The fraction that was not torn is 2/3. The fraction that was torn is a third. What if I combine the fraction which was torn and the fraction which was not torn? I will come back with a whole book, okay? So, look here. I've said 1 is representing the whole book. A third, we have removed the fraction which was torn. And we remained with the fraction which was not torn, okay? Would you allow me to give the last example whereby we shall have, let me give this one as Roman 5. How many thirds? Make one whole. When you look at Roman 5, I'm not far from Roman 2 and Roman 4. It is the same to say how many thirds are in a whole. How many thirds make a one whole? Likewise, we shall just have our whole of this kind. Then we make sure we distribute the whole into 3 equal parts. But how is this done? You make sure that if I'm to divide, at least I can try to make it that way around. To make sure that at least this is a third, this is a third, this is a third. And somebody comes here, how many thirds are here? I think everybody is able to tell. If this is 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. 3/3 means a whole. So you just count 1, 2, 3, and we shall say these are 3/3. The way we answered the second and the second, the third, now relate it to the 5th. Okay? Hope you have been good to observe exactly the concept of whole or the concept of wholes. How we can divide a whole into other parts of the whole. Like the way we divided a whole into halves, we divided a whole into quarters, we divided a whole into thirds. We can also divide a whole into other parts, like an 1/8, like a 10th, like a 12th. I want to thank you for listening to me. Hope you've enjoyed and you are ready to take over my activity and answer it very well. Till we meet next time. Thank you.